Welcome to the Ben Dano Podcast, where we're calling a spade a spade. The NBA has a serious ratings issue 2 weeks into the season, and when you look at their numbers compared to Caitlin Clark's numbers, you will begin to realize that nobody in the NBA at this current point in time is a bigger TV draw than 122 Caitlin Clark. It just is what it is. We've seen games from Steph, we've seen KD, we've seen LeBron. All those ratings are in, and all of them pale in comparison when we see what Caitlin Clark did year one of the WNBA. Let's hop right into it. Wednesdays, NBA opening week doubleheader on ESPN averaged 1.6 million viewers, down 42% from last year. Bucks Sixers had 1.71 million viewers, down a third from Celtics Knicks last year, while the Suns and Clippers nightcap followed with 1.52 million viewers, down 49% from last year. Now, something everybody needs to keep in mind is that both games were absent some key players, including Sixer stars Joel Embiid and Paul George. Now, before we get into this any further, let me just come out and say these are issues that we don't need to worry about in the WNBA. I don't need to worry about getting an Indiana Fever ticket and not having the star player or the second best player or the third best player choosing to sit out for rest. I don't need to go to a New York Liberty game to have Sabrina Ionescu or Brianna Stewart sitting out due to rest. I don't need to worry about going to a Minnesota Lynx game having Nafisa Collier sitting out due to rest. I don't need to go to an Atlanta Dream game thinking Ryan Howard's going to sit out due to rest. I don't need to go to a Seattle Storm game thinking Jewel Loyd's going to sit out due to rest. I don't need to go to a Las Vegas Aces game thinking to myself, is Asia Wilson going to sit out due to rest? I don't need to have any of these thoughts when I'm sitting down watching a WNBA game, whether I'm investing, buying tickets into a WNBA game. Those are just issues that we have not dealt with yet in the WNBA, and I hope we never get there. The fact that we're writing articles talking about the terrible ratings that the NBA is drawing, meanwhile keeping a caveat saying, hey, keep in mind, a couple of the star players weren't playing. Joel Embiid, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, whether those guys are healthy or not, they will wake up a random Tuesday or Wednesday and say, you know what? I'm good today. I don't feel like doing my job today. Same thing goes with Zion Williamson. One day he wakes up, he has a little heartburn because he ate too many Cheez-Its the night before. You know what, coach? I'm gonna sit this one out. LeBron James, you know what, coach? I'm gonna sit this one out. Anthony, you know what, coach? I'm gonna sit this one out. These are issues that we don't have in the WNBA. So from a viewership, entertaining standpoint, that's one thing that the WNBA has that the NBA doesn't. Let's move on. Week 2. Coverage of last Friday's Pacers-Knicks games drew 830,000 viewers, opposite of Game 1 of the World Series, down 47% from Heat-Celtics last year. Heat-Celtics last year during the same Game 1 of the World Series, 1.58 million views. People don't want to watch glorified All-Star games during the NBA. People don't want to watch three-point shooting contests while watching an NBA game. We want to watch actual basketball. We want to watch great basketball plays being made, actions being made, defense being played. Instead, we don't get that in the NBA. We get a few guards that have some nice dribble moves that they like to sit there and ISO and dribble. We have that. We have players that can dunk. They don't have that in the WNBA. And then there's tons of three-point shots getting tossed up every single game. Teams are shooting 35 threes, 40 threes. Boston Celtics, 50 threes a game. Who wants to watch that? Who wants to sit down and say, hey, folks, hey, guys, let's go sit down together as a family and put on the NBA and watch all these players shoot threes? It's not like that in the WNBA. The one thing not having peak athleticism gets you, you need to actually run some actions. You need to actually have an offensive game plan. You watch the Minnesota Lynx, you're like, oh, these guys have an offense that they run. You watch the Boston Celtics, oh, these guys have threes that they chuck. Way different. Way different. What the WNBA has that the NBA doesn't have as well are players that are willing to sacrifice on both ends. Yeah, maybe an NBA team will have a player or two that will sacrifice on both ends. But by and large, the entire roster, most of these players would rather give 75% on defense than give all their effort. Oh, well, I have to conserve my energy for the offensive end. You're weak. You're soft. One thing I can say about the W, even the bad players give effort on defense. Even the worst WNBA defenders give more effort on defense than the worst NBA defenders. Very rarely do I see players take plays off defensively in the WNBA. More often than not do I see players take the plays off defensively in the NBA. I see more players, yes, they hit the ground because they fall, but I also see more players chase after and dive after loose balls in the WNBA than I see players chase down and dive after loose balls in the NBA. So again, from a viewing standpoint, I see one league giving me maximum effort a majority of the time, and I see another league giving me 75-80% effort a majority of the time. Folks, I can spend all WNBA season joking about missed layups, joking about missed rebounds. I can have fun with it. But I can sit here and also tell you that the NBA game isn't exciting to watch. I can sit here and tell you that there's not enough amazing dribble moves every single game for me to want to be glued into my seat. There's not enough incredible shot making every single game in me to come to my seat. There's not enough must-see things going on in the NBA than there is in the WNBA. No player in the NBA is must-see TV at this current point in time. Nobody. I don't care what you guys have to say. Nobody is. If they were, the ratings would showcase must-see. If they were, we wouldn't see 830,000. If somebody on the Pacers and Knicks was must-see TV, that would have at least eclipsed over 1.52 million, but they're not. The Suns-Lakers game drew 1.37 million. You have KD and LeBron. You have Anthony Davis. You have the new head coach. You got Devin Booker. If any of those players were must-see, the number wouldn't have been down 22% from Steph and the Warriors from the year prior. Wednesday's doubleheader, they're trying to say that it fared better with what, 1.01 million viewers? That's not good at all. And the following game on that doubleheader, Thunder Spurs, 730,000. That's not good at all either. 730,000. If SGA was must-see TV, people would have tuned in. If Victor Wembanyama was must-see TV, people would have tuned in. Do you know what is must-see? Do you know what is must-see TV? Caitlin Clark games. 2.3, 2.2. Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese right off the bat. Caitlin Clark versus the Seattle Storm. 2.2. Caitlin Clark versus the Connecticut Sun. 2.1 versus the Fever. 1.9 versus Liberty. 1.8 versus Liberty again. 1.7 versus the Wings. 1.7 versus the Sky. 1.6 versus the Lynx. 1.5. Every single one of Caitlin Clark games that were on ESPN, ESPN2, even ION and ABC eclipsed 1 million viewers. That's must-see TV. That's people going out of their way for appointment viewing television. The only time we get numbers like what we saw with the Pacers Knicks is when she's on NBA TV. When she's thrown on NBA TV and she's breaking the NBA records on NBA TV. Caitlin Clark on NBA TV draws more than NBA games on NBA TV. That's not a good look, folks. That doesn't showcase, wow, this is some real good stuff. This is what people want to watch. Look, here we go. Happy? I found it for you. It took me a second. Most watched games on NBA TV this past year. Caitlin Clark against the Aces. Caitlin Clark against the Wings. More than Cavaliers Warriors. Caitlin Clark versus the Atlanta Dream. More than Warriors Spurs. More than Timberwolves Lakers. Caitlin Clark against the Connecticut Sun. More than Spurs versus the Suns. More than Pelicans versus the Sun. She is a bigger draw than NBA's biggest names. I'm not sure how else to explain this. People want to watch things that when they tune in, they're like, damn, I can't look away. You get that with Indiana Fever games. You don't get that with every single WNBA game. I'm not going to come out and say, oh, all these W games are amazing. All of these are going to draw like that. No. Caitlin Clark games are the only ones from a ratings standpoint, from a viewership metric, that can compete with the NBA games. The only games that can compete. Yeah, you get a few outliers here and there, right? You get a few outliers here and there. You got the Las Vegas Aces versus the Chicago Sky on CBS. You get the Phoenix Mercury versus the Connecticut Sun on ABC. You get the Sparks versus the Aces on ABC as well. That was following Caitlin Clark. You do get the outliers. But by and large, a majority of the WNBA games that are featured are giving you 397,000. 394,000. It is what it is. Caitlin Clark's WNBA debut gave you 2.1 million views. The WNBA debut with Caitlin Clark gives you more than the NBA season opening doubleheader. That's not good on ESPN. That's not good at all. So I know people were joking around. Maybe the NBA needs to do something and lower their rims. Maybe they'll get more views. That's all funny. But that doesn't tell the actual story. The actual story is WNBA has Caitlin Clark, who's must-see TV. NBA doesn't have anybody like that at all. The NBA product right now is shit. The WNBA product isn't as bad, if I need to be honest with you. Neither of them knock your socks off. But I will tell you this, any Indiana Fever game is much more exciting than any NBA game that I've watched so far this season. That's a fact. That is a fact. The Chicago Sky versus the Las Vegas Aces, where they went into overtime, Kennedy Carter hit that three. That game was more exciting than any NBA game so far this season. That's a fact. The last 5 minutes, game one of the WNBA Finals, that was more exciting than any NBA game I've seen so far this year. That's a fact. NBA product is not good. It's not in a good place at all. And the ratings showcase that. It's the Ben Daniel Podcast, where we're calling a spade a spade. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. As always, take it easy.